Welcome to Educating Geeks. I'm Sarah. Today we are educating Megan about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's right. And we also have
Alice Baker.
And Cassie.
And so I had never gotten to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think it was out, it's 1997.
1997.
So... Gosh,
where were you in 1997?
How old was I in 1997? I think I was living in Germany in
You're
1997. Yeah, I was a baby. I was living in Germany at the time.
I'm crying. I'm so crying right now. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, here you go. You can see her cry now.
No, I want it to be really good. I want to see Alice cry.
So, I don't even know. I mean, it had to have been going on when I was living over there. So I think we probably got Buffy in 1998, so it would have been about a year later. But I was not allowed to watch Buffy, which was weird because I was allowed to watch the movie. My mom had no problems with me watching the movie, but she had so many issues with me watching the TV show. And, I talked to her about it, and she's like, I don't know why I didn't say why you couldn't watch that. Like, she has no recollection of banning me from watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is good because, obviously my mom was paying attention to the things that I was watching and was making sure that I was watching age-appropriate material, but, then at the same time I was definitely watching other things that were not what I would consider age-appropriate, but she had issues with Buffy for some reason. I think she latched on to the idea of the vampires, and she didn't like me watching stuff about vampires.
Well, and there's a lot of sexuality wrapped up in the vampire mythos, so I get it.
Yeah, and there is. And I think the original movie, which we'll talk a little bit more about, there's a lot less of that. It's a lot more campy. So I think she had problems with the tone of the show. So I didn't see a whole lot of it when I was a kid, so... and I know it's a huge show for geeks, like, especially for geek ladies. Like, Buffy is like the lady. So I haven't seen Buffy, and so I've sat down and I've gone through the first season at this point.
Let's talk to Cassie and Allison about what your first exposure to it was.
So I was graduated from college and working at my first professional job in 1997.
The movie came out in 1992.
Okay.
True. Okay, so I was younger then, which I also saw in a movie theater. So I really loved the original movie. I love camp when it's done well. I mean, Pee Wee Herman, like, best death scene ever. So hysterically funny. Pee Wee Herman rocks. So the problem with Buffy for me was, again, I think I mentioned last episode, so I studied martial arts for about 10 years, and I was right in the middle. I think I must have been a blue belt at that point.
What martial art do you practice?
It was a mixed style, so it was Taekwondo based, but we also did pancration, U.S. style boxing, a whole bunch of other stuff. I did do some MMA.
Wow. You're my favorite.
I know. Every time, the more we learn about Alice, the more awesome she becomes.
Yes, indeed.
So I think we're planning to talk about this a little bit more, but for me, watching little teeny Sarah punch the punching bag without a straight fist and with a really crappy rolled fist and all that kind of stuff, it was really hard for me.
Yeah.
And I have found through this process and thinking about this process that we're doing in our education is that I tend to be really hard up front. Like, I accept the fact that I'm a critic, and even if I've enjoyed something, I can sit there and nitpick it and talk about all the things I found wrong with it. And it wasn't until later when a friend was just like, no, you're going to watch it with me. I don't care if you don't think it's good. You're going to watch it with me. And it was the language and the characters and all the Whedonisms that we've all come to know and love that really eventually hooked me. And then in the end, too much disclosure, but we're all ladies here, right? So after I had Ray, my son, and I breastfed, and you're like tied to the chair, right? There's like nothing you can do. You're just sitting there. So I watched all of them all the way through, and then Angel after that.
Wow.
Straight
Holy.
through.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Cassie,
like
what
400
about you?
episodes.
Yeah.
Well, not to rub it in terms of the age, but the movie came out when I was 5, and I had absolutely no business watching it. But I was hanging out with a neighbor who was a couple years older and had friends who were a couple years older at a sleepover, and I watched it, and I haven't seen it since, so I don't really have an
it's so
adult.
good.
I don't like camp as much as my compadres.
Yeah, Cassie is she's a drama lady,
Yeah.
which is part of when we get there, which is part of the reason why we've been so shocked that she hasn't seen Battlestar.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it's such a dramatic
Drama.
show.
There's
Yes.
very little camp in Battlestar, if
So-
any. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I watched that, and there's a teeny 30 minutes. But
Anyway.
it's a space opera. What do you expect?
Right, exactly.
I watched it and didn't think anything of it until years later when I stumbled across the series on WB, and I was a very casual watcher. It was one of those, just like you say, clicking through the channels, and I came across these hapless misfit teens, and just started watching. I liked Sarah Michelle Gellar enough, but I really liked, especially in that first season, I really liked the plucky sidekicks.
Yes.
I liked Xander, I liked Willow, I liked Giles, their mentor. And even as I got older, grew to like Cordelia.
Yeah.
So,
that's
Oh, especially.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really tough.
yeah.
Yeah, well, she's such more of an appealing character in Angel.
Yes,
They
definitely.
give her some depth.
Yes, she
Ah,
grew
yeah.
to be a very cool character in
Yeah.
Angel, and it was probably great for Charisma Carpenter to move on to that. But yeah, so that was my exposure, seeing the movie when I was way too young to understand why the heck things were happening. And then stumbling upon it during WB's heyday with all the other hit and perhaps not critically acclaimed series, but hit series that they had at the time, and it's in Buffy's beginnings.
My first exposure to it was the wedding episode. Well, it wasn't a wedding episode. It was the dream sequence where Buffy dreams that she and Angel are getting married, and but on the promotions for it, one of my girlfriends was like, I think they're getting married. Oh my gosh, the commercials! I think they're getting married. We have to watch this. So I was over at her house, and I was like, fine, I'll watch this. And it was kind of what I expected it to be, being on the WB a little bit, I mean, especially with her perspective, like, are they getting married? Aren't they?
Right.
At that time, I would, like, now I'm all like, relationships, love, drama. But back then I was like, ugh, I was too cool for school. So I didn't think it was a serious enough show to really get my attention, especially with watching it with her and seeing it through her eyes. So I didn't really start watching it until the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. I was renting a room from a woman who had started watching it, and I started actually in about season 5. I just kind of popped in where she was in the show, and I was like, well, this is really kind of complex and engaging and compelling.
Funny.
So I started, and it's funny. And now Spike.
I haven't seen very much, but I know all about Spike.
Yeah. So I decided to start from the beginning, and Buffy was really the first show that I went through just methodically. Like I did the same thing like what Megan would do with Fringe, and I mean I didn't think I was chatting on like producers or whatever, but I went online, I did so much research. I even got timed my Netflix DVDs to come so that I could watch the episodes of Buffy and its spin-off Angel as they aired in the correct order, and I knew
oh my god,
wow.
Buffy didn't air that week, so I need to watch 2 Angels in a row.
That is methodical.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, yeah.
That's geeky now.
Yeah.
Now, did you want to, I have to ask, was that because there were actual concurrent storylines going on?
there were.
Oh,
yeah.
Early there was.
And
I
there-
didn't know that.
And there are episodes where the Seth Green character leaves Sunnydale, goes to LA, and does stuff with Angel and his team, it's not necessary to watch it like that,
Right.
but It's
what you're describing.
Well, and
is,
even when Buffy ended and Angel continued, they
there
would
was
have
crossover.
crossovers. There
Yeah,
was still
yeah.
crossover,
Oh, season 5 of Angel gives me goosebumps. Oh, I love that one.
That's so funny because what you're describing is something that one of my other geeky things is that not so much anymore, but for years I was obsessed with collecting Witchblade comics. And there's a run of Witchblades, I think it's in the 20s, where Jackie Estacado from The Darkness comes over, and then Sarah Pazzini goes into The Darkness, and it's like a 4 or 5 book run where I went and bought the Darkness issues, and they're like slotted in between in between the proper Witchblade, so I can have the whole story arc. And that happens every once in a while. Not in comics, doesn't happen a ton, but yeah, like that's kind of what I did with Witchblade at that point. I was like, I got to get the Darkness.
And it's almost like you were living it like you would have in real time had you watched it.
But I could binge.
Yeah.
We geeks love our binging.
We love our binging.
Oh, yeah.
So Buffy got started because of this movie. Because of the movie that came out, what was it, 1992? That you said? So yeah, I was about 7 at the time. I don't remember when I first watched the movie. I know I've seen that movie like dozens of times.
Yeah.
It's weird. I was talking about my mom didn't like me watching the show because of vampires, but I was always into vampires as a kid. Like, I used to get these little monthly mailers where they talked about, like, different dark creatures of the night. And I was, like, I read the vampire one until it was just, like, crumbling apart. So I've always had this thing about vampires. So I watched that movie so many times. And who is it? Is it Luke Perry that's in that movie?
Yes.
Yes. And, like, I was kind of into him because at the time, 90210 was the big show.
Right.
I was too young to be into 90210, but I knew that was the big show, and those were the guys that girls were supposed to have crushes on at the time. But, he's good in that movie. It's different from the character that he played on 90210, and he's good in it, and he's cute, and he rides a motorcycle, and,
all pluses.
Did you ever see him in Jericho? Isn't that him?
No, but that's one of those shows that I've heard is good and worth watching. So that might be something that we'll have to talk about.
The fascinating thing about, we're totally segueing. So the thing about watching Jericho is that if you're a BSG fan, it is like the testing ground for all of the Vancouver actors.
Okay.
So like...
Well, that's kind of
Gata
like
is in there. There's a whole bunch of them that have guest spots in Jericho.
Curly-haired babies with him.
Boy, man, that BSG episode's gonna be hot.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great episode. Do you have the IMDb available for that? Because I can't remember who the actress was for the movie.
Well, because she never.
Oh, it was Christy Swanson.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd seen her in a couple other things. I remember seeing her in other, and then
it's Donald Sutherland who's the watcher, right?
Donald Sutherland.
Awesome.
He's awesome. He was a great. What was his name? Is
Merrick.
Merrick. Talk about a great character named Merrick. So anyway, one of the things that I never realized or even like put 2 and 2 together was that Joss had written the screenplay for that. And I had no idea. Yeah. And Sarah was saying that he was
very involved in it to a point, and then he didn't like. I don't know exactly the story, so I don't want to point the finger at the wrong people. But he didn't like the direction they were taking it. He wanted to, Joss Whedon is one of my favorite feminists of all time. And he wanted to take the trope of the blonde girl, the blonde damsel in distress that's like, oh, no, don't walk down that alley. And then she makes a bad decision and she's the first to go. He wanted to turn that around on its head and make her the tough guy.
Right.
Well, the tough lady.
Well, and I do think that's achieved in the movie, ultimately.
Right. But I don't remember exactly what his beef is. I'm sure there are dozens of geeks, or maybe a geek yelling at
us right now.
Player.
How can you not know the story of Joss
Anyone
Whedon?
listening, if you know the story,
just yell it.
Let us know.
Really loud at your MP3
we'll
player.
We'll hear it. The thing about it is, especially with movies, more so than TV, I think, is creative differences happen all the time. And it could be from the casting of the main character to any number of other things that
you just
may
didn't
seem
like the
minute.
visual style. Maybe.
I mean,
that's definitely
it was
well, in the language,
the story.
Yeah, and Joss has that very specific.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't have the Joss Whedon tenor in it. I mean, it's very different. And Buffy in that movie, she's such a valley girl,
Right,
which is actually like is actually one of the things I liked about that movie.
I liked that movie.
She was
I know
she's such a valley girl, but at the end she's like, God, I'm so vapid. Like, I can't be like that anymore.
Yeah.
Which
cool.
is a really cool growth cycle to
Yeah.
see someone go through. I mean, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I do kind of remember being a little bit excited when the show came out, but yeah, I wasn't able to watch it. So.
In Christy Swanson's defense, the one who played original Buffy in the movie, she does have 71 credits, according to IMDb. She was in Big Daddy Early Edition, which I watched in
maybe
syndication.
that's what I had seen her in, because I watched that show. That was a good show.
I like that show. Back when CBS catered to the religious and elderly. And
back when?
Well,
Sorry,
they're a little different. they're quite a bit different now.
Sorry, don't hate us, CBS.
Top rated show, or top rated network. Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She's done guest spots, but so she's not quite a nobody, but she's
I didn't
not,
say that she wasn't nobody. She certainly didn't go on. It wasn't like a jumping off point.
No,
for
it was
her
not.
or
It was not.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll be forever known in geek culture as the original Buffy, but
she's not my Buffy.
well,
You know how everybody has their doctor.
Chronologically speaking, Sarah Michelle Gellar was still on like All My Children at the time. So that is the movie.
Yeah, but, I mean, it was a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. So I sat down and I watched the first season, and I gotta say, like, the pilot was terrible.
I can't.
I did not enjoy it at all.
Did you see the unaired pilot?
I don't know. It's whatever's on the Netflix instant stream, so
Likely
I don't know
the
if
aired.
it was. I think it was the aired pilot.
Because that one has
the
Allison
thing about
Hannigan.
that, if I am indeed remembering the first show, in what you just said, Sarah, and that wanting to take those traditional roles and turning them on a dime, that opening sequence where they've broken in and it's the guy who's obviously, trying to bed down the little girl, and she's like, oh, is that a noise? What's going on? And then, she turns around and she's the vampire.
Yes.
And
And
takes the
that's-
Bible.
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's like, here I am, Joss Whedon, this is what I'm about.
That's
Ba-bam!
true.
Yeah,
that's true. I think overall, and it's the first 2 episodes because it's a 2-part pilot.
Right.
And I don't know, I just like I got through those 2 episodes and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it just doesn't. It wasn't really speaking to me. But the show kind of, for me, picked up a little bit when I got to the 3rd episode, which is the one where Buffy decides to try out for the cheerleading squad,
Right.
and one of the other cheerleaders, all of the cheerleaders are like coming under the evil spells of a witch.
Right.
And I think that is actually one of the few episodes. I think I've seen about 7 episodes. I've seen that one a couple of times.
Yeah. You mean that just over the course of time?
Just that one episode,
Yeah.
I've happened to watch it. And it's a solid episode of TV. Buffy is a lot more interesting as a character, I think, in that one. And one of the things that I kind of liked about it is it tied back to the movie. Because she's a cheerleader in the original movie.
Right.
And so, it's kind of bringing you back to where Buffy started and where she was comfortable. And I thought Sarah Michelle Gellar looked awesome as a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
There's that shot where she's got her hair in a ponytail and she's bopping around, and she just looks super cute. And I was actually kind of disappointed that Buffy didn't get to stay on the cheerleading team.
Yeah,
because
I was too.
Because her reasons for wanting to join the cheerleading squad were to do something normal and to be around normal people and not be around the occult all the time and just try and have a normal life. And I thought if there was one thing that they could have given Buffy to try and
but
keep
they
that.
can't
I know
give her
they
that.
can't.
That's such a.
I know
theme
that's
through
the point.
whole entire.
I
She
know
show.
that's
can
the
never
point.
have normalcy.
She
Yeah,
can
she
never
can't have a
be
normal
a
life.
teenager.
She's the Slayer.
She just
Yeah.
can't. But I wish that it could have maybe lasted for more than one episode. It could have been a really nice arc if she could have attempted it for more than one episode.
I think they successfully did their job, though, that you can long for that character to have had that
That's true.
happiness. That means that, it resonated with you.
Yeah, and that's the first. I was not identifying with Buffy whatsoever in the first 2 episodes, and so that really kind of caught me.
And that was a major theme in Charmed too. Was there were these 3 girls and they were trying to have normal lives, but they couldn't because they were witches and they were special. And I didn't buy into that as much as I did with Buffy.
Well, okay, so again, that's because Sarah Michelle Geller is a better actress.
Joss Whedon is a better
saying.
showrunner.
Well, yeah,
Joss
I
Whedon
mean,
is a better writer.
it's
But that said, I will have to say I keep forget when Charmed came on in syndication, but it'd be right when I would get home from work.
in the
I watched that show
afternoon.
religiously because
Oh,
it
yeah.
was, I watched it.
As a non-camp lover, I did watch Charmed.
Yeah, it's got good camp.
That is a campy
It is a
show.
campy show. and
Intentionally and
unrepentant for
unintentionally.
it. That's right. Unrepentant for it.
But, yeah.
Well, that was one of the things that eventually drew me got me sucked into Buffy was that Sarah Michelle Gellar actually really does a great job of pulling off that character.
She
It takes
does.
her a few episodes to get in her
there,
rhythm and
yeah.
whatnot, but she becomes believable very quickly for me
Yeah.
in that role.
That's nice to see. When an actor just owns a character.
Well, and
Yeah.
she really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did.
And
Although
there
I do
always
think that
is
it's problematic
worse.
because I have that issue with actors when I feel like they become a caricature of themselves. And so, like Tom Hanks, for example, when I sit in a movie theater and I see Tom Hanks, I can't see whoever Tom Hanks is trying to portray.
Yeah.
'Cause
I
it's
see Tom Hanks.
That's my problem with Tom Cruise. I'm like, Tom Cruise is
It's
playing
just
Tom
Tom
Cruise in
Cruise.
another Tom Cruise
Yeah.
movie. And he's producing stuff now, so it's like Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise in Tom Cruise's movie, Tom Cruise. You know? It's like, and I don't like him, but he's not my favorite.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an amazing feat when an actor can embody characters
Well,
so
and,
well.
she really hasn't done a whole lot of work since Buffy, and she had that show,
Ringer.
yeah, that just like totally
I didn't
flopped.
even
What was that, 2
watch.
years ago now?
A couple years ago on
Yeah.
CW. Yeah.
And it was an interesting concept because she's playing two
Two roles.
characters.
Right.
But yeah, it just didn't go anywhere, which is kind of disappointing because she's actually a really talented actress, and I'd like to see her do something else.
Yeah,
I do think she's made for TV more than for
Yes,
film.
I think so. A lot of actors are, and now we've got
She
film
did The
actors.
Grudge. She's
The
pretty
Grudge?
good in
Oh
The
yeah,
Grudge.
The Grudge.
Yeah.
So is the original or the sequel?
The first one.
I think it was the
yeah,
original.
Yeah. I saw that one in the theater.
Me too.
But we keep talking about campy, and
Right.
that this show is campy.
It is campy, but
It's endearing.
It's
yeah.
in a different way.
It's Joss
So-
Whedon campy.
Yeah,
I guess
so one
is
of
the
the
way to
things
put that.
that's campy, or the way that I feel like Joss Whedon is campy, is his language.
Yes.
I mean, it gets talked
It's
about
all
a
in the
lot.
dialogue.
It's
The
in the
dialogue
dialogue
is
and the
very-
language, and
yeah.
so what was that show? The Gilmore Girls. One of the
Yeah.
things that killed me about the Gilmore Girls, because it also has that nice, it has that language in it, but you're sort of like, nobody talks that way.
Right.
My
Yeah.
friends aren't that clever and quippy
Yes.
all the time, but you three are.
Aww.
Thanks.
You too, Alice.
Yes, absolutely. Nice.
But
things.
in Joss Whedon's hands, that sort of flippant,
It's-
she's like,
yeah.
have you ever heard of, that expression, ooh, my leg, and then she like cracks his leg or whatever. It somehow reads okay in his hands.
And talking about the dialogue, though, there are a couple moments of dialogue in the first season that I'm like, Buffy doesn't read Spider-Man. Like,
like
there's
he's
a-
trying to be too cool for
Yeah,
sure.
there was one episode where Buffy says something like, well, my spidey sense is tingling, and I think
That's
it's...
vernacular.
it is
Yeah.
vernacular, but at the same time, like, the way that it happened in the conversation was... It didn't feel like that would be the kind of thing that Buffy would be saying. I was like, I don't know if that would be...
If you're quite
I
buying
was like,
it.
this is Joss Whedon talking now. This is not Buffy
character.
Or
Summers.
sometimes
Yeah.
I think there's an attempt to make to add dimensions or layers to a character that sometimes just don't feel right.
Yeah, and
Sometimes they
I
feel
I
forced.
think that line, the delivery, in the context of the episode, it would have made way more sense coming out of Willow or maybe
Or
even
Xander.
Xander. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't quite work. And I think, I remember, like, that stopped me in my tracks when I was watching that episode. And I was like, whoa, that's not quite working. But I think it kind of worked. Those kinds of things kind of worked themselves out as the show went. But yeah, I mean, that was a moment where I was like, this is Joss Whedon talking. This is not Buffy.
Season 1 is not.
Season 1 has a lot of it's it's the
Bumps.
first season of a
Ba-boom,
show.
ba-boom. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
first seasons,
I
too.
always try and give a show first 3 episodes.
Yes,
because
that's
I always
fair.
feel like the first 2 episodes they don't really know what they're doing. They're just trying to get their product out there. They might not know what their arcs are going to be.
Right.
And that really affects the characters, how they behave on screen. So I always try
and
and get
they
to
have
the
to
third
get
episode.
retooled too. A lot of
Yes.
them,
Yes.
the networks will come
Yeah.
back and retool.
They could be totally different.
Just like in Firefly, Val had to come back as, yeah, there we go. We're going to make Alex cry
Firefly
again.
is not a good example of when TV execs get in the middle of something.
Well, no, but they, Mal was a little bit hardened in the pilot, and then he came back and he was a lot happier, and that was the episode that they aired first.
Right.
So you see that a lot in, from the pilot to the series.
Yeah. So I always try and give a show 3 episodes, and if I'm still like, okay, this is worth giving it a shot, I always try and give it a season and a half, because the first season they're always like trying to find their footing, trying to work out how the show is going to work, what the actual tone of the show is going to be, and then when they start their second season, that's always when they're like, okay, we've got our footing, this is the direction that we're going to go in. And so I always like to give them the whole season to figure stuff out, and the second season to show me exactly where they're going.
You're very generous.
I know. It means that I've wasted a lot of time on some shows that I probably should have just ditched after a couple of episodes.
Given up on.
But, if I might leave part way through the first season and then go back to it at the beginning of the second season and see if I want to go back and fill in the gap. So that's where it really took off for me. And one of the so the next thing that really kind of jumped out at me was that guy Owen that Buffy started dating. There's like this episode where she's already kind of gotten in with Angel, and that whole thing is kind of starting to develop and smolder a little bit. But she ends up going on to stay with this guy Owen, who's like the loner at school, and Cordelia is like trying to get her hooks in him because he's really awesomely cute and adorable and hot, and he's like he's always reading, and he's very
he's the one student that actually goes into the library.
Yes,
looking for a book.
Yeah, he goes into the library. So
I love him already.
And this is my problem with the end of that episode. So at the end of the episode, Buffy breaks up with him, and she's like, "We can't even be friends." Because she was too worried about putting him in harm's way. I'm like, what about Willow and Xander?
Right.
You are totally fine putting Willow and Xander into harm's way just because they want to be your friends. But this guy who they end up going to the where do they go? They go to the graveyard, and they end up going into the mausoleum. And he's like, this is so awesome. Like he's totally geeking out. Like he's totally into the fact that she's like hanging out in graveyards, and that she's got this dark thing about her. Like he's totally willing to dive in head first into all of the Buffy shenanigans. And she's like, we can't even be friends anymore.
That plays into your earlier issue with her never being able to have that
I know it, but he could have been a really awesome member of the Buffy squad.
The Scooby.
Yeah, he could have
And
been.
hot, P.S. I'm pulling up an IMDb photo.
Oh my
He grew up to be quite the gentleman.
Wow.
Christopher Wheel.
Yeah, I mean,
Christopher,
he was adorable.
join us.
Hello.
He was dark, and he was smoldering, and, he could have been a really cool addition to the Scooby Squad.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between somebody that you're friends with and somebody that you date.
That's true.
Your standards are higher for somebody that you date, and she is,
Alice is
my standards for my friends are fucking astronomical. My standards for boyfriends are, trust me, much lower.
Now, I have a question.
Your problem.
Why can't we all be equal?
Yeah, come on.
Like a middle ground. But the thing
because I'm complex and
I
complicated.
mean, I guess the argument could be made that, she has more than friend feelings for him, and if he got put in danger, that would be too hard for her to deal with. I wanted him to be a part of the team.
But besides enthusiasm, what
you.
does he bring? What would he bring to the team?
Well, but I mean, we don't know what Willow and Xander were going to bring. Yes, hotness.
Hotness,
and
for sure.
He could have been a werewolf. He could have been any of the things that eventually develop in the series. I wanted him to get more of a chance.
How much of the relationship between Buffy and Angel have you seen yet? Do you buy into that relationship? Are you rooting for them?
I don't know.
Was a bit tedious.
I mean, I know.
I would have to.
I know enough about Buffy to know that it's Buffy
It's
and
an
Angel
epic.
or Buffy and Spike, and you're in one camp or the other, and that's kind of it. I mean,
Epic.
how do you say his last name? David Boreanaz?
David
Boreanaz.
Hello,
The-
salty goodness.
David Boreanaz.
Adorable. He's very sexy, and they
And
have
shirtless.
they do have good chemistry on screen.
He was
together.
quite manscaped at the time.
Well,
now that he's older, he's got hair. And I prefer him with hair.
That's a boy's age.
That's
Oh
true.
my
That is
God.
how
He was in his 20s at the time. He should have had a bit more hair.
and he. Early on, the other interesting thing for me, having, in that moment, having watched them all the way through season 1 through 7, I believe it is, you see them all develop as actors.
Yeah.
And for me, he made the greatest, he was the most
as
freshman. In season 1, you're just like...
He's not great on screen.
Yeah, he's not trying to be like...
He's a little wooden.
Yeah.
But he gets so good.
He does. He's really developed into a really good actor.
Well, and everyone I know who's a big fan of his said he's just fabulous in Angel. And then I know people who watch Bones, which I don't watch because I'm not into
She doesn't watch procedurals.
Which breaks poor Cassie's heart.
Yeah, that's okay, I'll live.
But yeah, I'm just not into procedurals, but I hear wonderful things about him on Bones. So, but yeah, going back to the question, I don't know at this point because the whole first season with Buffy and Angel is so tedious.
And it's also not that much. It's a drop in the bucket. It sets it up a little bit, but you don't really get into
it's only like 3 episodes.
Until later.
Yeah. Later, and then it becomes very important.
Yes.
He's got an interesting backstory. Considering the vampire rules that Joss Whedon has created for his Buffy universe.
Yeah.
He's got that backstory where he has a soul because he was cursed by a gypsy. Which goes back. A friend of mine's got this thing about gypsies, and so it's another damn gypsy curse.
Poor Romany people.
I know.
Yeah, right?
That'd irritate me to no end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those damn gypsies. But which is an interesting backstory considering, the vampires in Joss Whedon's universe don't have soul because I don't remember exactly how they're like
monsters, right?
Yes, they're monsters.
They're soulless monsters.
They're like passing their virus on to each other, and if I'm remembering correctly, it's kind
vampires.
of weird.
I would have to say, just generally, is not a part of geekdom that I've ever really been. Vampires and zombies, never really cared.
Oh, zombies are good.
Yes, I've never really cared.
Well, and I think we're going to do The Walking Dead at some point.
Yes,
so,
the comic.
I'd like to do both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think I need to get through the second season before I'll really know the answer to that question. I know that
when does the big O happen? Which season is that?
Big O for real?
I'm looking at Sarah.
When is that?
She clearly knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. Oh, I think that's season 2.
Is it 2?
Does that
happen that quickly?
Yeah.
Am I thinking of this is in the far reaches of my memory?
Or is it season 3 because he has to leave after that?
Of course he does.
Of course. Now, is this his? There's something my brain is
in the
trying
mythos
to...
of between him and the Slayer.
So
then if it happens, then things change.
It's not the Slayer. It's part of the curse. It's not.
I thought it was her specifically.
I
thought it was her specifically.
Because
yeah.
Interesting.
Because in Angel there are...
So then it becomes this epic thing.
And from what I know, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, from what I know of the series, at one point he goes back to being a bad vampire.
Yes.
Which is probably right after they've had their first passionate love-making session. I know enough about TV to know that's where it's going. and that's where we get Spike,
enough about
right?
storytelling.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Enough about storytelling.
Know enough about
that's where it goes. Yeah.
Having grown up around Buffy and around people that watch it, I've got bits and pieces of where the story goes.
Right.
But yeah, I know Spike comes in, and I know that the people who are in Spike's camp are firmly in Spike's camp, and I've seen a handful of episodes with Spike in it later on down the road. I think the musical one has Spike in it, and we were talking about earlier.
And Spike goes through his own journey too.
Yeah,
Spike.
He does
on both shows, right?
Well, on both shows, and they. Well, we're again so digressing, but whatever. So far ahead. In Angel, they do this nice
convincing to go forward.
After
season 1, I'm
100%
still not sold.
Okay,
and you do have many episodes.
You have many episodes to go.
Yeah.
So in Angel, later on, they actually do an episode where they play a little bit on Buffy and vampires, and dating vampires.
And it's her need for the bad boy.
She's always dating vampires.
They make this nice sort of funny out of it.
Funny, And there's a book that I started to read called The Psychology of Joss Whedon, and it goes into it's like somebody's master's thesis, or it's a very academic writing kind of accessible for the most part if you know a lot about psychology already. It's definitely not like a primer in any ways. You have to go in knowing a lot about Joss, the Whedonverse,
Right.
and having a pretty strong interest in psychology. But there is this really great essay about Buffy and her self-loathing,
Right.
and and how it gets expressed in her relationship with Spike. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really deep. I didn't see this. And then I was like, am I doing that too?
How can you not see that though? I mean, when she goes there with Spike, it is all about the anger, and it's all about it's all about that. I mean,
and see, what I saw was passion. I didn't see the anger for the anger. And this was, I was going through some stuff back then.
Sure,
so I was in a totally different place. Now I can look back and see, that's where I was, and that's what was going on in the show. But at the time, I was just like, there's so much passion. He's feeling a need that she has for passion, which
I can see that.
She had the passion for Angel too, but it was more of like a delicate, like...
Yeah.
And
I totally was there on the I'm doing the magic mambo with this guy because I hate myself, and he's the guy that I'm going to be with because I hate myself.
And because she couldn't be with Angel.
No, I don't think that's it.
I think it's just because she hates herself.
But I don't think that. So this is right after. It starts right after she comes back, right? Willow pulls her back from the dead, right?
Yeah.
No, I know about that. I know that she
Okay.
dies, and I know that Alicia Dushku comes in as the second Slayer, and I actually have seen like those 4 or 5 episodes.
She comes
later
in
on,
season 4.
way later on.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so she comes in at season 3, I think.
Oh, so
Yeah,
Right?
you're right. It is season 3.
Yeah, she comes in at season 3, and
and this is like season 5.
well, and granted, right? So Buffy dies more than once
6.
over the course
Yeah.
of the series.
Well, I mean, at the end of season 1, that's what they're talking about. They're like,
The
you're
prophecy.
gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
the prophecy
Season-
is like, you're gonna die.
Season 6 is... Season 5 is the...
And she does.
And then season 6 is when she
That
and Buffy
episode?
get together.
Yeah, she dies in that
Okay.
episode.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
Lisa too.
She
Which,
dies
I
a
mean,
lot.
Does she die in every season?
No, she's not dying every
It's one of
season.
those things I have to say,
I mean, because
The title
that's bad for
character-
your brain.
Right,
Like, you have permanent brain damage from that, so.
I have to say, season finale, I know that was probably meant, with all due respect to all shows who do this, when a title character dies, they can't be permanent. They're the title character. Like,
Yeah, no,
they're not
absolutely.
going to die.
Except for in the case of, well, I mean, it didn't turn out that way, but we were talking about before we started recording, was that the end of season 1, it feels so final. Like,
Right.
I got the impression when I was watching it that they weren't sure if they were going to get greenlit for a second season, and they didn't want to end it on a huge cliffhanger.
Sure.
I mean, because that thing's got like it's over. Like, if they never came back to Buffy,
It would be a
it
nice
would have
little
been
package.
a nice package.
Yeah.
In my
Sure.
prep for that, I actually was watching I watched some YouTube video of someone who talks about pop culture, and she did a brief review of season 1, and one of the little fun facts was that all of season 1 had been shot before the first episode aired. So you may
So it was
be
all
on
in the can, and
Yeah.
they.
So you may be on
Gotcha.
something.
So
there.
they did the whole thing before they knew if they were going to get aired.
Mhm.
But I totally.
No. Well, they had the episode order. They just probably didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't
How, like you
know
say,
a schedule.
They didn't know
Yeah.
if they were going to get picked up for a
Right.
second season.
That is in the I'm not going to use the word right, the pantheon of storytelling or the canon of storytelling or whatever it is. There are those stories, and depending on what clues you get about what kind of story it is, I agree with you 100%. Your lead character in most stories, if they get killed early on or something happens, you know damn well that's not going to hold.
That's true.
No.
You know?
And that goes for most.
That happened
Grey's
in
Anatomy,
Grey.
Meredith Grey is not going to die. I'm obsessed
Yeah.
with Castle. Castle's not going to
gonna
die.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Well,
It's-
we have cliffhangers like that in Fringe too. Going back to what we were talking about last time, there are things like that happen, and actually, if you
The bullet
But
that
it's
saves
the
the
clues.
world.
Right.
you decode the clues, you get,
The interesting thing about Fringe is, given that they have the alternate universe, you could have one die in one of the universes, but you still got your character.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
Yes.
Interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
But I remember, let's see if I can remember the film. I'm going to say 80s. Okay, granted, maybe none of you were born yet, but I think it was To Live and Die in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that film?
Nope, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. One of the main characters, he doesn't die early on, but he gets offed like 3/4 of the way through the movie. And I remember when I watched that film, I was so shocked because again, you just don't expect it.
Well, that's like,
and isn't that what?
That's like
speaking
when
of
Psycho
Joss,
came out.
What?
That's like Psycho. Like this. I mean, we're talking about a really old movie now, but Psycho, you follow one character through, I think it's 2/3 of the film, and then bam, she gets murdered right in the middle. And no one had ever really done that before. So when Alfred Hitchcock did that, like, it blew people's minds.
Yeah.
So
sure.
that and people don't do that a whole lot because you still, that's not something you do. You don't give your audience a character to identify with, and then halfway through the movie they're just gone.
Yeah.
Though there is some bravery to that.
There is.
Absolutely.
I mean, guts.
Yeah.
Or dare I say balls.
Balls and guts.
Balls.
Or how about some
and
ovaries?
a few ovaries.
Take some
So
ovaries.
wait a minute, we've got balls, guts, and ovaries?
Yes.
It takes some internal organs.
Speaking of
May
Fringe,
or may not be gender specific.
All right, back to Buffy.
Anyway,
Back to Buffy.
yeah.
Let's talk about the supporting characters. Of
Okay.
Buffy. Who we loved and who we love and who we hate.
I'm gonna say something controversial.
You go right ahead.
I do not like Xander.
Oh my god, me neither.
I love Xander.
I don't like Xander. I don't know if it's season 1 Xander that I don't like, but I mean, he's
so
pathetic, and probably that's part. He probably has a nice arc, and he gets less pathetic. But I don't know. He drives me crazy. He drives me crazy. He's pathetic. He. I don't see any purpose to him except for to put him in trouble when we need a storyline.
In
He's the sidekick comic relief.
in season 7, is it with when Nathan Fillion comes in?
Okay.
Yeah.
There's Nathan
I have
Fillion?
to say,
Yes,
I have to say that Nathan Fillion in Buffy for me is one of the weakest characters in the whole.
How long
series.
was he in there?
Just
at the end.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. He plays a particular character.
But they're
Priest, right?
Yes.
Basically, there's an exchange that goes on between Caleb, Nathan Fillion's character,
Right.
and everybody else, where he basically just tells them who they are. You're the Slayer. You're the one who sees. You're this.
You're the witch.
that.
You're
But
the whatever.
in season 7, is that necessary? You know, but once we've gotten to that point, do people really need to know? Do they really need to be identified? Has that been made clear? Or do you feel like he was more like calling them out on stuff?
So what does he call Xander? I'm assuming
He's
that's
the
where
one
you
who
were
sees.
going. He's the one who sees.
Yeah.
So he illuminates Xander's identity, or does he help him?
Well, I think
Well, I think Xander's having a crisis of faith because at that point Willow is super witchy,
And a lesbian, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
by then
Right,
she's a
girls by
lesbian.
that point.
but everybody
yeah.
has superpowers except
Except
for
for
Xander,
him,
so he's
yeah.
kind of having like an existential crisis.
he's like Zuko in The Last Airbender.
They're special, no doubt. And the amazing thing is, not one of them will ever know. Not even Buffy.
Know what?
How much harder it is for the rest of us.
No way. They've got
7 years, Don. Working with the Slayer. Seeing my friends get more and more powerful. A witch. A demon. Hell, I could fit Oz in my shaving kit. But come a full moon, he had a wolfy mojo not to be messed with. Powerful. All of them. And I'm the guy who fixes the windows. They'll never know how tough it is, Donnie. To be the one who isn't chosen. To live so near to the spotlight and never step in it. But I know. I see more than anybody realizes because nobody's watching me. I saw you last night. I see you working here today. You're not special. You're extraordinary.
Maybe that's your power.
What?
Seeing. Knowing.
Maybe it is. Maybe I should get a cape.
Xander's having kind of an existential crisis. Like, how do I benefit this group? What why am I here?
That's
am
kind
I
of
and
why
I think-
I don't like him. I'm like, he doesn't really do anything.
I have
Well,
to
and
say,
I think in season 1 he doesn't do a lot. I think he
Yeah.
really is there for the comic
He just
relief,
gets in
and he's the
trouble with the
sidekick, and
hyenas.
and he's the mopey boy who loves the pretty girl, right? I mean, like all of that is true. But I think
Oh God, that is such an annoying part of his character in the first season. It's like,
Get
over
clue.
Buffy, like please.
Yeah.
And then I really don't like to play into that. I hate how Willow is just like fawning over him constantly. Like I'm so glad that they get away from that in
Yeah.
later shows because she's so much smarter than that.
Mhm.
Like,
well, sure,
Yeah,
that's high school,
But
though.
that's
Yeah,
high
that's true.
school,
That is
right?
high
I mean,
school.
that's a
Yeah.
classic. I love him and he loves her, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
We've all
Yeah.
been there, right?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
no, never.
But I do think that is what that character's doing for all those people who have been thinking, oh, Xander's just the comic relief. He's just, what is his purpose in the story? Blah 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 blah. Is Nathan Fillion's character is saying no, he is
You have a
important,
purpose.
and he does have an important role in the character, and he sees people for who they are, and he sees things, and so I think that is what the character's doing.
Yeah, well, he's certainly not seeing people for who they are in the first season.
Oh,
I'll tell you
No,
that.
I have
he
to-
does. He has an arc.
Yeah,
He has
he's
an
got
arc.
to develop that. Okay.
I have to
Yeah.
say, if you've watched Xena,
Oh,
yes.
God.
Yeah.
I equate him to Joxer.
He is.
Yes.
Although I like Joxer a lot more than I like
do.
Xander.
Yeah.
Well, Joxer was so obviously Joxer.
Yeah.
And he
So
was
obviously.
he was sidekick comic relief.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
And
his
that's-
role in that group was.
Yeah.
And I love my sidekick comic relief.
Absolutely.
Totally. And Willow, I mean,
Willow's
again,
cool.
she's cool, but she is hard again in season 1 because
Yeah.
they don't develop her. Again, you're a smart geeky girl who loves science.
I will
that
say,
doesn't
though,
happen till later.
Willow has a couple more moments that kind of endear her to me as a character that Xander is just kind of completely missing for me. Like there's an episode where they're in coding class or in like software programming class, and Cordelia is like over to the side like, how do I do this? I can't really figure this out. Is this right? And I think it's finished. How am I supposed to get it to the teacher? And Willow's like, hit deliver. Yeah. So Cordelia hits delete and like loses her whole program.
Oh my god.
And Willow just like marches out of the room. Like I was like, oh yeah, girl. And Cordelia had been sitting there like, these smart people, they're so terrible. I don't understand how they can do this stuff. Like she was just being total Cordelia. So I was like, yeah, get him, girl. When Willow did that.
For the listeners at home, as Megan is imitating Cordelia, she's like got her chest puffed out and fake typing.
Yes. Lots of shoulders.
Lots of
swinging.
shoulders. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about Cordelia. So, do you hate Xander more than you hate Cordelia?
I think as a character, yeah. I mean, Cordelia's place is very clear. Cordelia is the popular bitch at school, and
Xander
Charisma
is
Carpenter.
the mopey boy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean,
think
they're
they're
all
archetypes.
playing classic high school archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Xander might be a little too mopey. I mean, he's just too whatever he is.
He
He's
tries
too much
too
of
hard.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that he was the only male. So maybe
That's
that was part of
true.
it. Is
That's
he's the
true.
only guy in this group.
He doesn't have anyone to
Giles.
really foil off of. But he and Giles don't ever have. There's not. I don't think there's a single scene where it's just him and Giles in the first season.
Later, I believe there is.
Yeah.
Not
Now
as
that you
much.
say that.
I don't think there is in
Not
the
a
first
ton.
season.
And they don't really have a. I mean,
They have no reason to talk
He's
to each other.
Buffy's mentor.
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
there for Buffy.
And to some extent, Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Willow would go into the library. The
Yeah.
only reason why Xander's going to go in the library is
For
following
Buffy.
somebody else.
Yeah. And going back
He's
to
kind of a sad puppy, just following
yeah,
everybody around.
But he-
that's,
I feel
that's my
like-
problem. Is he's that sad puppy that just follows everyone around, and those people drive me crazy.
And that's why I don't like dogs.
Oh!
Get out of my grill, dog.
Oh,
I would
man.
probably.
But yeah,
He
I
gets
kind
better.
of want to.
Yeah.
I kind of want to
He
shake
gets better.
Xander and be like, just figure something out to do yourself. Like you don't have to
Have
follow.
your own identity.
Yeah, have your. I think that's
So
why
I
he
find
bothers
this a
me.
fascinating conversation in from a feminist perspective. We're all women, right? That
we don't like him.
I like him.
Me too. And yes, he's mopey, and yes, he's problematic. But the reaction of him as a guy having those qualities and that behavior as being so incredibly reprehensible versus if it were a female character.
I don't
and
know
how
that
it
I would
be-
like a female character.
No,
that behaves
I would
No,
that
but
way.
you
not. I would have
wouldn't.
no time for that.
Yeah, but I think but I think the reaction would be different.
It may be.
And part of it could have been his portrayal at the time. I will say that Xander does become more likable, I believe. I think if you stick with it, he matures, he gets stronger. I think it's a little bit how he's written.
I think it's a little bit the way that he's acted in the scene.
Yeah,
he doesn't really speak to me. But, part of the reason why I like Cordelia is that Charisma Carpenter, I hate Cordelia as a character because you're supposed to. But Charisma Carpenter is, so committed to being that character. And, even when in the season finale she's actually, driving a getaway car at one point, it's... I don't know, it just kind of works a little bit better for me.
If I were going to have a role in that show, I would want to play Charisma Carpenter's character. I would want to play Cordelia.
Another fun fact, you know that Charisma Carpenter and Sarah Michelle Gellar auditioned for the opposite roles, right?
Oh. I did not know
Sarah Michelle Gellar auditioned for Cordelia, Charisma Carpenter auditioned for Buffy.
That makes sense to me because, I'm almost surprised that they didn't get cast opposite because I think Charisma has more of the Joss Whedon look. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
to me,
he likes Eliza Dushku,
he likes
brunettes.
Tiny brunettes with big eyes and big brown hair. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is not the
she's got big eyes.
She's got big eyes, but she's not as much of what I would call the Joss Whedon girl.
But they probably had to keep her blonde to make
that matches the movie. Yeah.
But, that is more the archetypal cheerleader character is going to be a blonde.
Thankfully, we moved away from a very superficial symbol as hair color years later.
Yeah.
That's so silly. Now, a cheerleader can be brunette on a TV show.
But the thing is that those things exist, and we all do make those connections, right?
Yeah.
So, dark hair, smart, Willow's the smart girl, or evil,
or mousy because she's got red hair.
No, actually, she kind of breaks the mold because she's a redhead, and they're often
mousy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's I put big air quotes around that. I don't believe that is true. I just
right.
From a superficial standpoint.
In media, just like you have those stories, and you expect the lead character to survive, and you expect the mopey guy not to get the lead character, and you expect, we've all been trained through storytelling over time that these things are true, and these things happen this way, and so we've all been
conditioned
program, but we've all been conditioned to expect a certain thing. And this is an argument I have with Sister Liza all the time, because I kind of like those, Inception-y, what's the one where he writes on his body?
Memento-y
kind of films, or films that don't tie everything up at the end or whatever. And she hates them. She's like, I want my stories. I want to know who the lead characters are. I want to know where their arc is, and I want to know what the ending is in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh, that's so boring.
So she wants.
Sorry, no offense to your sister.
But me too. I like to mix it up, but she likes the comfort of knowing where the story is going.
It's almost like she wants, and I think this is true for a lot of people. You want to know that your investment is going to pay off.
You want to know what you're going to get.
Yeah, because you are investing your time and energy into a show when there are tons of other things, or movie or book, that it's time. You're investing time. I don't agree with that philosophy. I like to have some questions that I can answer on my own.
Right.
But I can see how some people would, just for the sake of watching their investment, would want to make sure it's a good investment. She would not have liked the Sopranos series finale.
I need to watch that.
It's pretty, even without watching the show, that's one of those ones, like Inception. Like, basically the talisman spinning, and you don't know.
And you don't know which way.
I love that movie. That's such a good movie.
So, any other characters?
Buffy.
Do you want to go? We're in
Giles. We haven't really talked about Giles.
No,
he's not.
You don't like Giles?
He doesn't really do much in the first season.
He doesn't.
He's
I just like him.
Aggravating.
You just like him?
I just like him.
Dislike him?
I just like him, but I don't feel like
strongly one way or the other.
I'm ambivalent.
So, because when you're looking at the acting chops of everyone there, he's the best actor because he's the
and he's in those coffee commercials.
Yeah, right. Well, he's the most believable for me in terms of selling his dialogue and selling his character. I find him very believable.
Oh, yeah, and he, just from the very beginning, when he's anxious or nervous, he takes off his glasses and cleans them. And he developed that tick so early on. You could tell that, and Tony Head just gave so much thought to how he was going to portray this character. And
he's a very seasoned actor.
Oh, yeah.
Right, exactly.
And at the end of the credits there.
Yeah. And it shows. Yeah. It shows in that first season that of all the people out there,
he's the most experienced.
Giving their craft, that he's the most experienced at it.
But the Giles character, I hope
he gets more of a story arc, because one of the things to me that stood out to me the most, and we're at 54. One of the things that stood out to me in the first season that I really want to see more of is there's the Wiccan, the teacher that's a Wiccan. She's like an online Wiccan, and they have this great chemistry like instantly on screen. And I'm like, well, I want.
No, I don't.
No.
think so.
I don't remember
No.
who,
Okay.
but they have instant chemistry, and I'm like, well, I want Giles to have a girlfriend, and that
He
was
has
like the
several.
only thing that but that was like the only thing that stood out to me as memorable about Giles in the first season is like, okay, let's get this guy doing something.
Well, that's the thing, and so coming from a childhood where I basically had to raise myself and my sister, and I desperately needed guidance and mentorship and somebody to parent me, but there wasn't anybody to do that, so I had to do it for myself. I remember watching Buffy and thinking, oh my God, why can't Giles fix this? Why can't Giles do this? I wanted to pull him into the role of the father, the one who takes charge and fixes everything. But he can't.
Right.
And that's why he doesn't do a lot of this stuff. He can guide.
Well, and that is one of the
Buffy's
interesting
job.
things about his character. I mean, and it kind of comes out the most, I think, in the finale of season 1, where he's like, I've got this prophecy, I know exactly what's going to happen, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to stop it because this is all on Buffy's shoulders, and she's going to die. Like, everything I've read says to me that this girl that I am bound to protect and to guide is going to go away, and there's nothing I can do. And that was some of the most powerful acting that he had done in the whole first season. So yeah, I mean, I like Giles more than I like Xander. I know that much.
That's
Xander.
high bar.
Maybe that's what Xander is for, is to be everyone's whipping boy for a little while. Like, poor Xander. It's kind of like Daniel from Stargate for a while. He was like, everyone just womp on Daniel. But
Well, yeah. That's for the Stargate. I was going to go on a
that's
tangent.
for another episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
All right,
Giles is
so
interesting. So anyway, let's talk about a Buffy drinking game.
a Buffy drinking game. All right.
I'm sure Alice has a few in regards to attire and
Yeah,
lighting
that's
style.
one of the things that we're kind of running out of time. But one of the things that is the fashion on this is just so brilliant. It's 1997 fashion.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me is Buffy's shoes. I know that they kind
boots.
of drive you crazy, but she wears boots with like thick heels.
Yeah, the
Like,
bat heel.
Yeah, and
yeah.
you know that is sensible clothing. I gotta say, like,
Well,
she's
except that
very
they're like
fashionable.
3
Too
inches
high.
high.
They're
they're
tall,
too
but
high.
at least they're thick.
And then
boots.
she wears the leather pants that would be waders if she
Yeah.
wouldn't be wearing boots.
Yeah. Well, you know, I remember, like, that was a style for a little while. God knows why.
In
we
that first
decided
outfit she
that
wears, in
we're
the
all
pilot.
going to wear high waters for the next year. Like, that actually happened. That was a fashion trend. I remember having discussions about it in class.
I'm glad you're anti.
Oh, we're gonna have I've got clam diggers. Mine are a little bit higher than yours. Like, what the heck?
If
was
you have
that
to call
trend?
them clam diggers, you know there's a problem.
But I mean, it was an actual fashion trend, so I'm gonna define. It was what was going on at the time.
Interesting.
Well, and then they put Willow in the sister wife outfits.
Yes.
Right?
The
Willow's
sister
so
wife
pretty.
outfit.
Sister wife
She was,
outfit.
from
Oh, and there's a great
Frumpy.
episode
Yeah.
later on where they have like basically like an alternate universe
The
version of
Halloween
themselves,
version?
the doppelgangers.
Oh, the doppelganger. That was also
Oh.
good.
Oh, I don't think I've seen
And
that.
Yeah.
oh,
That's a
Willow's
good one.
costume in that one you will
Blah, blah,
love.
blah.
Vampy?
Okay.
Yeah.
Vampy.
Yes.
But one of the interesting kind of little bits of trivia that I remember from when I was obsessed with this show is that the last episode, the series finale, they made the actors take off their clothes, and they're like, I'm gonna go home in my clothes and keep them as a memento. No, they're take off your clothes, don't wash them, give them to us. We're going to auction them.
Oh,
So
that's really
somewhere
cool.
out there, somebody has, can whenever they want, just smell everybody's pits.
That's kind of gross.
I love your expression,
His
Cassie.
face is priceless.
The fact that people actually thought, we're going to get a lot of money off of this because their skin cells are still on them.
And there's people out there that specifically bought just for
I'm
that.
sure.
Ugh,
Yeah.
That's gross. Don't be that obsessive, people. Come on.
There's a line we'd like to draw.
That's crossing it.
Yeah. But,
Buying the costume is fine. Buying it with pit smells. That's a line
A little
we
bit
should
too
never
far.
cross.
Yes,
Yeah.
they should have dry
Yeah.
cleaned those immediately.
But yeah, the thing that really stood out to me was Buffy's shoes. I thought they were sensible. I mean, we're talking about, now you watch an action film. Like, did you guys
So
see...
Castle.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's her name on
Stonic
Castle?
Attic.
She's in boots,
Yeah.
but they're more like,
They're like
4-inch
stiletto
hooker
heels,
heels.
They're out of
right?
control.
Yeah, they're out
Yeah.
of control.
Well,
I don't
mean,
know how
like,
she
look
does it.
at Catwoman's boots from the newest Batman movie. Like, those
Oh,
things
sure.
are... I have no idea how Anne Hathaway ran in those things. She managed to do
You
it somehow.
do it on your toes. You run
that
on your
she,
toes.
she's
Control
got
your
That's
have
gonna do
her,
damage to
her-
their feet
Her legs
long
and her
term.
feet must be...
Think how much fucking money she made on that movie.
Well,
It
yeah.
doesn't matter when you're 55,
And
your
you
feet
can't
out of
walk.
shoes.
It's like
I
all the
don't know how like
ballerinas.
Beyonce dance
I
or
don't
Lady
know.
Gaga how they
Yeah,
dance
they
in
do.
those.
And Lady Gaga wears some redonkulous shoes.
Yeah,
Man.
she does.
They're crazy. So, okay, so let's get back. Let's wrap it up. Let's come up with our Buffy drinking
With
game.
our
So what's the Buffy drinking game? Oh, okay, so one of mine,
Yes.
anytime you can tell that Sarah Michelle Gellar's stunt double is doing the work.
That's
you
right,
have to
instead
take
of
a drink.
her.
Yes.
So
It
she
sounds
does
like-
have an awesome
Who is a
stunt.
fabulous stunt double?
Does anyone know if the same stunt double
I think
follows
it
her
was
through
the
all 7
same.
seasons?
I think it was. I recall reading something. She may have had a
She
different
is
one at some
really
point,
freaking
but
awesome.
I know that it's definitely the same lady all through season 1. I mean, you could tell. And then she's a good stunt double. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah,
So yeah,
she is.
anytime you can tell it's Sarah Michelle Gellar's stunt double, take a drink.
You have to take a drink.
Yeah.
Ridiculous dialogue before she stakes somebody.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god,
that's a
you'd be
great
so
one.
fucked up. Are you kidding me? That's like every single time.
The one-liners?
Always.
That is something in TV I really would like to do away with in general. The one-liners.
Really?
Yes.
Sometimes they work. It's
The
a
one-liners
show.
on a procedural, the one-liners before they smash cut to the title and the credits, or before they go to a commercial break after the first act, or the teaser.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my pet peeve. So yes, one-liners,
So
we will
rule
get
number
drunk.
2, yeah.
Yes, we will get drunk.
Sophia Crawford was apparently the stunt double of Buffy
Good
for
work, Sophia
42 episodes.
42. So that's like
That's
not bad. 96.
That's like 2 movies.
Yeah.
It says 96 to 2000, so it sounds like maybe there was another one in between, because 42 episodes would have been a couple.
Well, I'm
seasons.
in. What was it, Sophia Crawford? I'm in her territory now. So
Yeah,
Right.
but it sounds like she might have gone back and forth.
okay.
She also doubled for Geller in Scream 2. Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google.
So Cassie, do you have any?
I don't have any that come to mind. Maybe, well, I don't know. To the one-liner point, I would say the when they're in the thick of it with Angel and Spike, the banter. If there's a way to narrow that down, the banter, which is enjoyable, but something about
One
their
of my
banter.
favorite exchanges between them is actually in season 5 of Angel, and they're kind of examining their relationship, and they say something like, "Maybe we should hate other people."
Oh, nice. Things
I
like that.
Wish I could remember.
There are
It was
things like that
spectacular.
they said constantly between she and Spike, and between she and Angel to a lesser extent. She and Spike were more fun in the banter, I feel like. She and Angel were like pure.
How about anytime Angel is being moody?
Oh my god, again, you'd be so drunk. So drunk.
Just,
Thankfully,
Oh my
he was
God.
not a
Well, that is
regular
the
character.
point, right?
oh, anytime
Yeah.
Angel is shirtless.
Oh, yeah.
That happens less frequently, so that could be like a shot.
Okay.
You
That
have to,
could be a
take a
shot.
shot every time.
I'm trying to think of something Xander did all the time that was like
Being annoying.
being
Oh
annoying.
my god.
He would do something and be mopey, I guess. In the first
Oh,
couple
how
seasons.
about Giles cleaning his glasses?
Oh,
that's a
good
good
one!
Whoa, that is a good one.
That's a good one. Okay.
Because you
so
might have to pay
anytime
attention
Giles
for that.
glasses.
Yes, you have to
Okay.
pay attention.
Or stammers. Anytime
Who
he
was the
stammers.
second
Stammers a
watcher
lot,
guy
though.
who's in Angel? I loved him.
Who?
The
Watcher
second
and-
watcher guy who comes in at the end of Buffy. And then
Wesley.
Wesley, oh my god, I loved
Wesley.
Wesley.
I feel like
Wesley
I
was
like
one
him.
of my favorite characters. Married to Allison Hannigan.
Yes,
Hannigan.
married to Allison Hannigan.
Oh, his
Yeah.
name is something.
Alexis
God, I
Dessau.
loved
Yes,
that character.
I like his name.
He's
Especially
an
in
American,
Angel.
He is an American actor, and when he speaks with his Native American accent, I'm like, his R's are wrong. They sound really
Is that what you
exaggerated.
said when I was
Fake.
talking about Damian
Lewis.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Fake.
I love Damien Lewis.
Yeah. Yes, fake
He'll always
accents,
be
but real
Major
accents.
Winters.
Yeah.
So crazy. You'll always be.
He'll always be Major Winters to me. He's
Yeah.
in Band of Brothers. Oh my god.
Man Brothers is so good.
Such a great show.
I need to watch it.
Okay, some more Buffy drinking game stuff. Any other rules? I'm trying to
I
think
can't
of
think
something.
of anything else.
I think you've got a good one with the cleaning glasses.
That is a really good one.
That's one
yeah.
where you really have
What
to
about
watch
Willow? Anytime Willow is on the computer looking up something to solve the case.
Well, I like.
Anytime Willow has to hack into school files. If she hacks into school files.
She hacks into
at
everything.
least
She does hack
once
into
a-
everything.
once
So
a-
she'll hack
anytime
into like
she-
city plans, like sewer
Yeah.
grid
Willow,
systems.
you're
Anytime
awesome.
she
She's
executes a
that one.
plot point.
Well, yes, that is the point of the drinking game.
There you go.
Well, at least the glasses cleaning is more of an actor choice.
Yeah.
But those are good ones. We'll be getting pretty drunk.
All right. All right. So, one of the things that we talked about starting to do is we will. I was doing this a little bit with Buffy as I was live tweeting while I was watching the show, and so we would like to invite our listeners to kind of join in on us with that. I don't know. Have we figured out what our next is? Our next episode going to be Battlestar?
I think that's fair.
We're doing
Next episode should
Battlestar,
be
and then what was yours?
Game of Thrones.
So yeah, we'll be watching Battlestar Galactica. Specifically for now, we're focusing on the miniseries, and then
we may venture into season 1 as we talk.
Okay.
Yeah, and the miniseries is
It's short,
very
so
it's 4
digestible.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So yeah, we're
Yeah.
doing Battlestar miniseries /
Season 1.
season 1, and then are we just doing season 1?
season 1 of Game of Thrones.
Okay, and, season
And a
1
little
Game
bit
of
of the comic. Or book, I mean. Sorry.
But I was gonna be like, what?
Well,
I'm on
we might
the
need to
other
do the
fridge.
books
Yeah,
separately
you're on
because
block.
they're very different. We
Yeah.
need to do the books separately. But anyway, so we'll be talking about those things. We're using that Twitter hashtag Educating Geeks, all one word. And so, if you're watching or following along with us, you can join in on the conversation while we're watching our shows. And
I'm Sarah. My Twitter handle is @ladybug.
I'm Alice. My I almost said my hashtag. On the internets, I am ALCBKR.
This is Cassie. My Twitter handle is @WriterWarrior.
And this is Megan. Megan's Twitter is @MegCalcote, and the last name is CALCOTE. So we hope you'll join in with us on that. And once we get our website up and running, we'll start posting the drinking game rules. So
Oh, awesome.
And maybe
So
we'll
people can
actually
share that.
participate when we
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
We can do one episode of the execution of a drinking game.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to.
Mystery Science Theater, sort of.
We'll have to do a live taping while we play one of the drinking games at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh
we'll see how well
my.
that goes. But thanks for listening, and
Yep,
hope to
thank
see you
you.
at the next episode.